It started small, just a few whimpers whenever his owners arrived. At first, I chalked it up to nerves, but soon his cries turned into trembling, his eyes wide with fear every time their car pulled in. Something wasn't right. When he cowered as they clipped on his leash, I couldn't longer ignore it. I called the police, never expecting the investigation to reveal a truth so chilling it still haunts me. The mornings at the shelter always started with energetic barks and wagging tails. People came in with their dogs, all saying cheerful goodbyes as they handed them over for the day. Everyone seemed happy, and it was quite a sight to see so many excited faces, both canine and human. I always enjoyed these busy mornings, especially when I got to welcome new pups to our little daycare. Watching the parade of wagging tails and happy faces all around me always started my day off right. Among them, a new mixed-breed puppy caught my eye with its big, bright eyes and bouncy nature. The little guy seemed eager to fit in, his tail wagging like crazy as he scampered in. I couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm. It was more infectious than the yawns I had that morning. Everything seemed fine with the little mixed-breed puppy until it was time for pickup. When his owners came through the door, what was once a lively, bubbly pup suddenly changed. The moment they entered, he began to shake, backing away like he was scared. It was hard to believe this was the same pup that had played happily just moments ago. I started wondering what could be going on. I watched the puppy closely as it whimpered and cowered when his owners approached. Usually, pups were excited to see their people, but something was off here. A few co-workers saw it too, and we exchanged worried looks. Nobody knew why this puppy, who spent the whole day playing and wagging his tail, would suddenly act so differently. We had to figure out what was happening with him. Our team decided to keep an eye on the puppy over the next few days. We all hoped his mood would lift, with a little extra attention and maybe a treat or two to ease whatever was bothering him. Despite our efforts, the little guy remained distressed each time his owners showed up. It was odd because he was otherwise full of energy and joy whenever he was with us. Seeing this sad pattern made it clear that something wasn't right. The uneasy vibes this puppy gave off were unusual. It wasn't normal puppy behavior to fear its owners like this. We decided to talk about it more as a team. Maybe there was something we were missing, or maybe we needed to approach the issue differently. Either way, we knew we had to get to the bottom of it soon. I began keeping a small notebook to track the puppy's behavior around pickup times. Little jot notes of distress signals or out-of-ordinary actions whenever his folks arrived painted a clearer picture. It became clear quickly. Every time those familiar faces entered, his mood took a downturn. Clearly, something about seeing his owners triggered this anxiety. Maybe noting these behaviors would help us understand a bit more of what was going on. For most of the day, the puppy was a bundle of joy, playfully bounding around, making friends with other dogs, and enjoying every treat and scratch behind the ears he could get. It was just around the end of the day, things started shifting. This active difference during the day made all of us curious as we started asking each other for thoughts and ideas on why his mood flipped. Some of us wondered if there might be an unseen health issue, though that seemed unlikely given his sprightly ways throughout the day. Maybe it was something else altogether? I found myself more curious with each passing day, hoping one of us would stumble upon a clue that pointed us in the right direction. It felt like a little mystery we just had to solve. One afternoon, I decided to chat a bit with the puppy's owners. They seemed nice enough, with smiles and friendly small talk. I asked them about the pup's day-to-day likes and dislikes. They laughed, saying how surprised they were when he acted up. "It's so unusual," they said. Yeah, unusual, we thought. Despite their casual words, something didn't sit right. Nevertheless, I nodded, hiding my confusion behind a polite smile. Even though the owners seemed genuine, something felt off. I couldn't shake it. Every day, it became a part of my routine to watch them closely. Whenever the puppy got picked up, I kept an eye on him. As soon as he wasn't looking, I scribbled notes about his behavior. Other dogs happily greeted their families, tails wagging, but not this one. His nervousness stuck out to me like a sore thumb. The more I observed, the more I knew that the puppy's reactions were not normal. Sure, dogs sometimes get scared, but this was different. His fear seemed rooted deeper and maybe even stronger. I couldn't let this keep happening without knowing the cause. Whatever was going on, it just didn't match up with what should be normal puppy behavior. It was clear I had to dig deeper to understand what was happening. One quiet afternoon, while tidying up, a new thought popped into my head. Maybe, just maybe, another visitor at the shelter noticed something odd. We had so many people coming in and out, and if something peculiar was going on, someone must have seen something. It was worth a shot to ask around a bit. After all, the more eyes on this puppy, the better our chances of piecing things together. I figured it couldn't hurt to ask visitors lightly about their thoughts on the different dogs and their reactions. As I chatted with them, I mentioned how each dog reacted to owners just like I was curious about it. I kept it breezy and nonchalant. People told me about their experiences with plenty of grins and nods. Yet, questions about our little puppy had everyone pausing slightly. His behavior was unusual, even to them. Out of the blue, someone mentioned something quite interesting during a conversation. Why not record the puppy's pickup times? They suggested. The idea was genius. Watching his reactions to his owners through a video could reveal a lot. It would capture the subtlety of his fear without risking scaring him by hovering around. I shared this idea with my team, and we all agreed. It might just lead us to some answers. Equipped with our phones, we decided it was time to document each pickup. As soon as those familiar faces entered, we'd press record. We figured even the smallest change might give us clues. Video after video showed him cowering as usual, but seeing was different from writing it all down. With this footage, we could gather evidence without causing any additional distress to the little guy. It really was a good idea. Sure enough, as we reviewed the recordings, our worries became clearer. The little puppy was visibly scared, more than just shy. In each clip, his fear wasn't just obvious, it was heartbreaking. His body trembled, and his eyes? They showed pure terror. These videos didn't just confirm our fears, they practically screamed a plea for help. Whatever was wrong, it was serious, and we knew we had to act carefully moving forward. This wasn't just general nervousness, it was something deeper, something hidden. We could see it, the way he backed away, the panic in his eyes. It was time to take the situation seriously without alarming others yet. We didn't want to make a sudden move that could lead to more trouble. Handling this delicately was the only way forward. Carefully, we started thinking about how to help this frightened pup without jumping to conclusions. With concerns growing, it was essential to dig deeper into the background of all adopters. Maybe something in their past might explain this strange behavior. While ensuring every check was thorough, we wanted to understand who might be behind this fearsome reaction. It became more than just curiosity. My heart was set on seeing that this pup felt safe. We certainly couldn't rest until we uncovered something that explained what was happening. Initially, my manager thought it was just a phase. Dogs get quirky sometimes, she mentioned, shrugging it off. I couldn't shake the feeling, so I showed her the video recordings I'd collected. Her expression shifted as she watched the frightened little puppy squirm on the tapes. With a change of heart, she finally conceded. "All right, let's dig a bit deeper into this," she said, agreeing that something was indeed troubling. I spent many evenings diving into articles about dog behavior. Most articles centered on typical worries, but I found some intriguing details. They explained how dogs might react to traumatic events, causing sudden fear. These bits of knowledge only fueled my determination to find out more about this puppy. I needed to consider every possibility, even incidents, which might have left the poor pup this scared. I went back to reviewing the footage of the puppy's reactions thoroughly. It seemed like every time another family came to collect their dog, the little guy didn't have a problem. Then, something unusual caught my eye during one recording. There was something about the way he interacted when his owners were about. It was one detail I hadn't really noticed before but now seemed so telling. When I watched closely, I noticed a pattern. The puppy was purposely not looking directly at them. He'd also find spots to hide the moment they stretched their arms out to him. It was subtle, but he acted as if he'd rather be invisible than get picked up. There was desperation in his movement as he dodged them, and it was clear that his avoidance had to mean something. Everywhere he turned when they reached for him, it highlighted his discomfort. By this point, ignoring my instincts felt wrong. Whether it was one thing or many, something was affecting him deeply. I felt a tug that this wasn't just bad behavior. Further tracking and examining every reaction seemed necessary. I knew there was much more to uncover than what we were just seeing on the surface. The more days passed and the more footage we collected, the worse it seemed. Each pickup looked even more heartbreaking than before. My chest felt tight every time their car pulled up. Instead of being excited, the puppy grew more anxious. The urgency to figure out the key to this mystery grew stronger with every video we recorded. I couldn't bear to see him in such distress day after day. One idle day, as I pondered every angle, I couldn't help but wonder if his home life was the cause. Did something at home provoke this kind of fear? Out of concern and curiosity, I asked myself more about their life outside the shelter's walls. What was his world like beyond our view? It was time to broaden the search and gather more information about him and his current living. To understand more, one weekend, I took some time to observe the owners and their daily activities from a distance. They went through their day, running errands and living everyday life. It didn't seem anything was remarkable or worrying about their routine. Still, I watched, hoping something would clue me toward what was causing the puppy's panic. My mind kept a running list of all the ordinary things I observed. While traipsing behind them, it was clear their lives revolved around standard errands and household chores. Though everything seemed regular, I couldn't shake the feeling that this couldn't just be about normal activity. The panic we saw in the puppy felt too intense for it to be just everyday stress. Something wasn't adding up, and I couldn't help but feel we were missing a key part of the answer. Finally, I turned to a friend in animal welfare who had more experience with these situations. I called her, hoping to gain insight beyond what I'd already observed. Chatting about his reactions and strange behaviors, she suggested looking further for layers unseen by typical observations. Maybe we were missing something crucial. We needed to connect the dots for this puppy and help him feel safe and sound once more. After talking it over with my friend in animal welfare, it became clear that we both agreed there might be more than meets the eye here. It just seemed like something deeper was going on with this poor little pup. Her suggestion to get some professional help seemed like the right path forward. We needed experts who could analyze the situation with the knowledge we didn't have. Deciding on this step felt like progress in the right direction. After giving it some more thought, I decided to reach out to some dog behavior experts to see if they could help shed light on his fear. My friend felt it was a smart move, and I agreed. We needed someone who could really dive into this pup's unusual reactions. I was hopeful that some kind of professional analysis might clue us into the reasons behind his distress each time he saw his owners. I soon managed to set up an appointment with a reputable dog behaviorist, known for working wonders with anxious pets. When I arrived at the office, I detailed all the strange behaviors we'd observed in the little guy. The way he whimpered and cowered was so unlike him during the rest of the day, and we hoped the expert would have some insights into this peculiar situation. The behaviorist examined the footage carefully, taking notes and nodding thoughtfully as he watched the recordings. His eyes never left the screen as each moment of the puppy's fear filled the room. Diagnosing this wasn't going to be quick, that was for sure, but listening to his insights gave me hope that we might be able to pinpoint the source of the pup's deep-seated fears without jumping to conclusions. After all the discussions with the expert, a thought stuck out. Maybe this fear was rooted in an incident that hadn't quite resolved itself. The behaviorist suggested that underlying stress from an unfinished episode could sometimes cause animals to react fearfully. Noting it all down, I took this information back to work to coordinate our efforts with my manager, hoping that more documentation might illuminate the path to understanding. As we extended our investigation, one of my co-workers remained a solid pillar of support. She understood my determination to uncover why this little puppy seemed so fearful and was on board to see it through. We resolved together not to stop until justice for the helpless puppy was served, no matter what it took. I was grateful knowing we both shared the same sense of duty to ensure his safety. A gut feeling kept creeping upon me, urging me to dig deeper into the investigation. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I felt a strong sense that there was more beneath the surface. An uneasy feeling told me a solution was just around the corner. Getting to the bottom of this mystery wasn't just important, it felt critical, and my instincts wouldn't let me rest until everything came to light. One morning, just as I was settling into the usual routine at the daycare, something odd happened. A regular visitor, known for popping in to volunteer, mentioned they'd seen the puppy somewhere else before. At first, it sounded like a simple offhand remark, but it sent the gears in my brain spinning. Had this puppy been somewhere else, under different circumstances? The thought stayed with me all day long. As I mulled over the visitor's comment, I took a closer look at the paperwork concerning the little pup. Going through the adoption papers again, I searched for any overlooked detail that might hint at a previous incident. Their remark had opened a new door in my mind, prompting me to reassess every aspect of the puppy's past. Who knew what nuggets of information I might find hidden away? When I brought up the visitor's comment during a casual conversation with the puppy's owners, something shifted in their demeanor. They suddenly seemed uneasy, fidgeting with their belongings as they responded to my questions. I observed them closely, noting how their cheerful facade slipped slightly. It seemed they were keeping something to themselves, and I felt closer than ever to discovering what was causing this sweet puppy's distress. That afternoon, my suspicions grew stronger as I watched the puppy act like this wasn't his life at all. Each tremble became a fresh clue, pieces of a puzzle that didn't fit. I shared updates with my friend at Animal Welfare. "You've got a real mystery on your hands," she said. The odd behavior just felt like a doorway to something bigger. I had to keep digging. After chatting with my friend, she had a smart suggestion. "Why not check local shelters for missing pets?" she asked. That idea sparked curiosity in me. I was optimistic about what I might find. Maybe these shelters held a piece of the puppy's past. I called around to gather records, hopeful a bit of history might explain everything. The discovery journey seemed promising. Despite my best efforts, nothing gave the answers I needed. So, I decided it was time to call the police. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was the right one. "We've got some real concerns," I rehearsed telling them. There was more to this puppy's cries than anyone realized. This wasn't just about a mystery. It was about finding answers and keeping him safe. I gathered everything we'd learned and reached out to the local police with all the details. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention," they said. They really appreciated the evidence we'd carefully collected. It felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I hoped their experience would untangle this knot. With the police involved, maybe we'd finally uncover why this puppy feared his own family. It wasn't long before officers made discreet visits to the owners. "We're just here to talk," they mentioned calmly. Meanwhile, the puppy remained a central focus in this unusual situation. With every step they took, I felt a bit of relief, knowing the puppy's distress was taken seriously. The little mixed-breed pup deserved peace, and I hoped these visits would lead us to the truth. As the investigation dove deeper, bridges formed between shelters here and in towns nearby. The police were piecing together bits and pieces of the info we'd gathered. It felt like we were finally on the right track. I shared what I knew, hopeful that the connections we'd made would lead to uncovering the puppy's story. I wished on every star for a positive outcome. Slowly, stories we'd heard from the owners began revealing a pattern. Small details, which were once forgotten, now aligned closely with their narrative. This concerned me immensely. I couldn't shake the weight of this unsettling news. Everything nodded together, hinting that there was more to this story than met the eye. Solving this wasn't just about curiosity. It was about finding the answer to change this puppy's life. Amidst all the growing awareness, a feeling lingered. Something lurking behind the puppy's behavior wasn't yet solved. Each movement and reaction seemed to spell out an unspoken incident, creating more questions than answers. I braced myself for whatever truth lay ahead. Unraveling this mystery held the key to freedom, and I was determined to reach it. My hopes rested on the potential revelation, which felt closer each day. Investigation continued, and anticipation filled the air around us. The hope of resolution gave me courage. My mind kept wandering back to the scared puppy each time those familiar faces entered the scene. We all wished for peace and relief for him, deep in our hearts. Though we didn't know what was ahead, I had faith that the little pup's distress would soon find closure. One morning, just as the sun peeked over the horizon, police returned with news. "We uncovered some old records," they told me quietly. Documents that were once forgotten floated back into view, shining light on the family's past. This news sent shivers down my spine. There was a sense that something bigger was coming to light, perhaps a key to finally understanding the puppy's fears. Then, something about previous mysterious incidents came up. The investigator shared stories of other animals disappearing, whose cases also weren't closed. It was strange. Why did such incidents happen around this family again and again? My mind swirled with confusion. Could there really be a connection? It was starting to sound a bit too coincidental for my liking, and I decided I couldn't ignore this any longer. Papers hinted at some reasons why these mysterious cases remained unresolved. As I read through each page, information surfaced. It painted a picture that was both clear and alarming. The more I read, the more my understanding snowballed towards the real answer. I felt like we were getting closer. A resolution was just around the corner. This puzzle was finally starting to make some sense to us. One day, official findings laid out shocking, undisclosed truths right before me. Each page was a revelation, and it was hard to wrap my head around it. Who would have thought this path would lead to such surprises? Finally, all my efforts tied together. It was like a morning glory, blooming open with a crisp, fresh understanding of this situation. We were moving toward clarity with each step. Realizing how things were linked was beyond comprehension. As I connected these untold histories, the picture became clearer. When the investigators thanked me for shining a light initially, it felt fulfilling. Maybe I really did help open up aspects they hadn't considered before. It made me grateful for being persistent and sticking with my instincts about the puppy's distress. It was paying off in understanding this mystery. Yet, there was a final aspect that remained uncovered. It lingered just beyond reach, taunting us as the pivotal moment in solving this puzzle. I could feel how close we were, that with just a small push, everything could unlock the last truth we needed. It was a thrilling game of chess, and we were so close to a checkmate. We needed that final move for the whole picture. Returning to the shelter, I felt answers were near. My heart thumped as I walked in, energized by the developments. When the officer nodded my way and pulled documents from their bag, anticipation built within me. Could this be it? The missing piece? I waited, eyes glued on the papers being handed over. Something about this day felt different. I could sense a feeling of finality in the air. As they unfolded the story, the officer explained much they'd pieced together using our clues about lost animals' repossessions. It turned out people misunderstood his rehoming when questions began. The circumstances weren't malicious, but rather complex, hidden from plain sight. Everything seemed to click into place. Now, I saw how each piece fit into the larger puzzle we'd been assembling together over these past few weeks. Each piece of evidence we found seemed to scream mistreatment, leading the poor pup to forget what comfort felt like. But there was something else, lingering like a shadow. It was one detail that remained unaddressed, like a whisper yet to be understood. Digging deeper, I felt we were approaching the heart of the puppy's trauma. its reason to flee anything he once knew. I held hope closely. In our search, we discovered another trauma linked to its history. It was more than just a story unexplored. It was part of what brought redemption once resolved. As the officer continued, my heart thudded quietly. I knew we were close. The remaining pages were about to disclose what we had been hoping for, a path leading back to safety and warmth for the little one we had grown to care for. Finally, as the layers peeled back, the truth silently surfaced beneath our patient anticipation. Every moment spent understanding began to unravel the unknown. It was a real eye-opener, a signal that closure was near. Thoughts drifted to how these findings would shape the outcome during humble courtroom deliberations. It wouldn't be long before the evening news discussed the journey from fear to peace we'd charted for our little friend. There I was, piecing everything together while realization settled in like an old friend. The shocking moment made the day feel different. Understanding flowed effortlessly as more startling details confirmed yesterday's speculations. We had turned a page, and it felt monumental. All those late nights piecing clues finally paid off, and it was satisfying. The puppy's cries suddenly made more sense than they had ever before. As more details surfaced, echoes of mystery began their crescendo. Amnesia wasn't just a quiet answer. It was the answer. The puppy had suffered a traumatic event. Suddenly, details which felt senseless finally formed a coherent narrative. The truth wasn't what we anticipated. It was mostly a relief mixed with shock. It seems that throughout all the commotion, alongside our hopeful wishes, we finally saw the whole picture for what it was. The truth of the puppy's amnesia really hit home. Meeting his owners wasn't the reunion expected. They were just strangers in his eyes. Suddenly, everything lined up. The troubled glances, the scared puppy. It all made sense against our new backdrop of understanding. Knowing the cause released mixed emotions. Shocked? Absolutely. But it wasn't surprising after everything we'd uncovered. The revelations left us all rethinking past assumptions. Our hearts ached a little more as officers explained everything thoroughly, the timeline, incidents, and their newfound understanding of the puppy's fear. It was clear and decisive. There was nothing left unaddressed. Hearing those words felt both reassuring and heartbreaking at once. My thoughts looped back to that small, frightened puppy, lost in a world where strangers loomed around each bend, and familiar faces were but memories. With promises of future care and security, the police assured us he'd find a better place. The brief relief that washed over everyone felt like a long-forgotten balm. I let out a long-held sigh, glad to know we were finally moving forward. This time, a positive change would be on the horizon. Every one of us sheltered felt united in guaranteeing his brighter tomorrow. Discovering the puppy's plight gave clarity on procedures and soul-searching integral to our responsibilities. The closure of this chapter was near, and with it came invaluable lessons about observation and empathy. We'd faced an unusual challenge, but emerged wiser. Knowing the hidden causes gave us the insight to shape future actions. This journey through unknowns encouraged the value of careful, insightful exploration, longing for justice and truth's emergence. Bringing this chapter to an end left imprinted memories of a journey shared with compassion. While many strands of assumed misfortune loomed initially, we moved forward with a clearer understanding of what brought about such fears. Our camaraderie had transformed beyond words, highlighting trust within our growing network. We weren't just closing a case, we were embracing newfound knowledge, and it strengthened our dedication for repositioning compassion center stage. The little mixed-breed puppy soon settled into a family who showered him with warmth and care. It felt like his story was going in the direction it always deserved. They understood just what he needed and more. With a yard to play and gentle hands to guide him, his cries turned into playful barks and contented sighs. There was love and patience, and it gave him peace. Our shelter had learned so much from the little guy's episode. He taught us about the importance of diligent checks before adoptions took place. Collectively, as workers and volunteers, our collaboration made it clear how teamwork really carried us through the challenging parts. This experience showed how working hand in hand revealed answers, ultimately painting a picture full of lessons in the art of nurturing and protection. As this story wrapped up, I couldn't help but highlight the hope that dwelled in community care, radiating light beyond just one shelter. Through compassion-filled evenings and shared goals, we huddled around and created a positive ending for the puppy's cries to become contented sighs. Even in dense clouds, a shimmer of hope always emerged. Together, we set a path for him and many others, dancing towards a brighter future.